Hello, and welcome to Talking Beyond Trauma. I appreciate an opportunity to be part of another MHTTC program, and this time, we ask the hard question. How do you get ready to support learning and growth for students and for yourself? Today, we explore the practice called mindful self-compassion. We look at what it is, what it isn't, and how it helps us all be better at seeing ourselves and others. For those of you who left us feedback asking for a school-specific session, we thank you. We heard you and hope this discussion broadens your scope and helps you add to your professional and your personal cup. In today's session, we will be talking with Dr. Natalie Fikac. Dr. Fikac is a mental health professional and educator. Her educational experience began as an elementary school teacher, reading interventionist, professional school counselor at both the elementary and secondary level, campus administrator, and district level administrator. She lives by the motto, "You can't pour from an empty cup," and aspires to promote self-care and self-compassion in all areas of her life. She is passionate about growing leaders as a certified Dare to Lead trainer. She's been trained by Dr. Brene Brown. Amongst many interesting conversations about workplace wellness, Natalie and I share a passion for and often discuss the need for increasing the capacity of school staff and administrators. Following up on her pour from an empty cup motto, we decided to meet formally to discuss tools to assist educators and other employees working in the school mental health arena. We have a great discussion lined up for you today. Let's see what Dr. Fikac has to say about finding balance, being aware of ourselves, and how the two help us make connections and increase productivity in school. It's real talk with real people. Welcome to Talking Beyond Trauma. My name is Mordecai Dixon. Today we have an awesome program for you. Before we get going, let's talk a little bit about Dr. Natalie Fikac. What brings you to this work? I know you've got an extensive school history. You've got so much professional knowledge in the arena of schools. And so tell us a little bit about what made you do school? Why schools?
Wow. Thank you so much, Mordecai. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Yeah, this actually goes way, way back. Probably for me personally, it began in third grade. Living my childhood as a military brat, lived all across the country, picking up and moving every couple of years and resetting, relearning, finding my people, trying to fit in. And I had an incredible teacher named Mrs. Connor, and she really impacted my life in many ways. Ooh, I'm getting teared up just thinking about it. And I knew from that moment forward that I wanted to be a teacher. And so went to Sam Houston State University down here in Texas and graduated in 3.5 years with my degree in elementary education. And during that time, met my now husband, who was also a student at Sam, who was also going to be an educator and a high school coach. And if any of you know what that's like, we moved about every 2 years also once we got married. And so, yeah, I started my career at the ripe age of 21 and had my first classroom at that time. And so even my educational career took me around the state of Texas, from little small districts to large districts, working in both rural and urban populations. And little did I know that, being a military brat, moving every 2 years would equip me with skills and knowledge and tools to really read a room, find my place, adapt to change, take the time to take care of myself. And in that journey, I loved being a teacher. I was really the type of teacher that was more about relationships than curriculum. I mean, we did the curriculum, we planted gardens, we went on field trips, we did all the things, but my students really opened up to me and shared their hearts with me. And so through a matter of different events with my family and my sister, and losing my sister, I kind of went down this new path where I wanted to be a school counselor. And so went back to college, went back to Sam Houston and got my master's in school counseling. And in that journey, learned a whole lot about the role of professional school counselors in Texas. And probably around that time is when I really started to feel pretty burnout and tired. Um, Doing the heart work and, serving the needs of the staff and the school community and the students. And then at the same time, raising 3 small boys and moving still. Yeah, there's some pretty pivotal moments, I would say, in my career that even pointed me in a new direction where essentially I was a professional school counselor in a district and not really being able to counsel the students, really serving as more of a campus coordinator for testing and all things not related to counseling. Fast forward to today, we're very fortunate down here in Texas that we have legislation where now professional school counselors are required to do time task analyses to make sure that they're with students 80% of the time and for students 20% of the time. That time is could be audited. Anyway, this was pre that. And I actually had a pivotal moment where I had a student who was experiencing suicidal ideation, and I was not able to really give her the care that she needed because I had an office full of state tests. And it really, I would say, lit a fire in my gut to find a way to advocate on behalf of school counselors so that school counselors could really do the work that they were trained and educated to do. And so I decided, okay, actually, I reached out to a mentor and I said, you just had a really hard day with this student. She's okay now, but I want to be sure that this never happens again. What do I need to do? And she said, you need to be a director. You need to be at the district level supporting counselors. So in that journey, I never thought I would go that way. I said, how do I become a director? She said, you need to be a principal first. So I said, okay, not really a part of the path that I envisioned. Went back to Sam Houston, got my additional hours and certification, became an assistant principal. Very difficult job, very difficult. Hats off to all the assistant principals. Served as a summer school principal. And at that time, a lot of schools were starting to create positions to support school counselors based on some legislation changes. So I was so blessed, so fortunate to be able to move into a position supporting school counselors again in this total stage of hustling for my worth. I'd never been in a position, making sure I was supporting the counselors. I was supporting about 50 counselors at that time. And burnout started to hit again because I was just doing all the things I could do, trying to support them, trying to bring resources and tools that they needed. It was an amazing district. And then I transferred over to a position to be a director in a larger district, larger urban district, and in a district, very innovative, open to whatever ideas, possibilities, trainings, et cetera, that I might have a vision for. And around that time, I would say that was probably, at least at that stage in my life, like the highlight of my career was finally a director, finally working in a district that really supported the vision. I had a team that supported me, and it was amazing. And then a lot of things happened in my personal life that really compounded some stress and anxiety. And I was completely burnt out. And so, yeah, I ended up quitting in the middle of the school year, this dream job that I had. And there's a story that goes with that we may get to later. But at that time, I kind of hit a little bit of a reset in my life. This was probably, it's been about 7 years ago. And I really started to look at all the things that I was preaching about wellness, preaching about self-preservation and self-care, and I really wasn't living into them. And so I feel like everything happens for a reason. that particular season of my life, I needed to just step away, reassess, get my family the help that they needed, support them. And just all these amazing opportunities opened up that were all about self-compassion, all about leadership, all about advocacy, all about school mental health systems. I had the fortunate experience, even resigning in the middle of the school year, to work in a nonprofit supporting school mental health systems. And then I moved over to our state education agency supporting school mental health. And then that led me here I work at TIEMH at the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health. And my specific role here is supporting schools in developing comprehensive school mental health systems. And a big piece of developing a comprehensive school mental health system is making sure that our helpers have the help they need. All school staff are taking care of themselves so that they can take care of the students, and we can put things in place to make sure that our students feel safe, seen, supported, and that they belong. And so it's a long journey that's really gotten me where I am. And I'm super fortunate and blessed to be in a place where I can actually take good care of myself and talk to others about taking care of themselves.
That's incredible. I just, it's almost making me ask, like, where do we begin with this? This is such an incredible pathway. Thank you for your vulnerability and your authenticity. I am thankful on a number of different levels. The first being that I get to work with you. I've watched the work that we do in school mental health space. I've watched you teach some of the things that you are going to talk about firsthand. And in doing so, I'm always kind of taken with not just the simplicity of the content, but the fact that this really kind of applies to everyone. So although we're talking about school mental health right now, this isn't unique to school as an occupation, correct?
Absolutely. It's unique to humans.
All right. So that's exactly what we're going to spend some time with. Yeah, definitely we want to take a look at the school space. I don't want anybody who's listening today to believe that this is only for a teacher, say, for example, or for a school counselor, but that any occupation, any person, any family member, loved one, a caregiver can use some of the stuff that we'll be talking about in their walk and in their journey. Balance, regulation, and stress. You talked a lot about your stress and how that stress through these techniques actually started to dissipate and promoted some degree of clarity. What's happening in the mindful person that's not happening in the person who's actively stressed out?
Yeah, I can just speak from my own experience. We as humans, like, we are a physical body, we are a spiritual body, we're an emotional body, we are an intellectual body. And for me, the way that my body works is I started to notice physical things that were happening. And so being mindful of my heart racing, being mindful of not being able to sleep at night, being mindful of when I did feel peace and lower stress, being mindful of when I was having headaches. And so that level of self-awareness really is kind of the mindfulness piece. A lot of times when we talk about mindfulness, some people's minds immediately go to thinking about someone sitting on a beach cross-legged doing yoga, right? With their fingers together. And that, while that might be a way to practice mindfulness, you can actually be mindful in any situation. Stuck in traffic, eating your dinner, as you're going to sleep, when you're in the shower.
Maybe that's a place to begin then. How would you define it, just for anybody who may be operating from a misconception of what it is?
I would define mindfulness as being aware of what's happening in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
being aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your physical body in that moment.
Mm-hmm. That's sounds easier than it is. I can remember hearing about mindfulness early in my undergraduate experience, and I was convinced that like magic was going on in another room. I booked out of, it's like, yeah, it's going to be that corridor down the way. It's going to be like the room that's in the subterranean part of this building, as if something very different and maybe fantastic, almost mystical, was happening there that was not happening in the other disciplines. Um, they just, and it could just be that there wasn't enough information and the presentation, but my bias kicked in immediately. Everything you just mentioned is exactly what I thought this mindful activity needed to be. And I was convinced I wasn't it. I think that's the worst part of it, is that in the end, I walked away thinking that only certain people could be mindful. Maybe they were more connected to the earth or more connected to themselves, or they had found some inner peace or some out of body experience that I was not able to access.
Yeah, that's often a misconception from many. And honestly, it was mine as well until I started learning more. Um, you could also define mindfulness as an awareness of present moment experience with acceptance. So whatever's happening, you're noticing it, but you're not judging it. Knowing what we're experiencing while we're experiencing it, meaning we're not thinking about what's coming or what's behind us. It's be where your feet are. We are where our feet are.
Gotcha. That's wow. I could learn. I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I'm still learning. This idea of being present, paying attention to that moment, um, not trying to make it any more or less than it actually is, a process of naming what's happening, if you could even get to that place, um, and absorbing any feeling that comes out of that naming, whether that's discomfort, comfort, or anything in between. Um, these are tools that would take a lot of time for people to practice and fully understand. In my opinion, we live in a society that almost tells us not to do any of the things you just mentioned we should be doing. Um, we should tough it up. We should tough it out. We should, you know, deal with it and move on, or stop looking backward and don't look at hurts at all. Don't embrace them, and definitely don't name them. Um,
Yeah.
where does that come from? What is in your opinion the aversion to trying to name and stay present and be in that moment?
Well, from my experience, we don't want to sit with the uncomfortable or whatever's going on because it doesn't feel safe. It's our brain's system for fight, flight, or freeze. Our brains are wired to keep us safe. And if we are in a moment where we choose to not be mindful because it's uncomfortable, and there's discomfort, our brain automatically wants to take us to a place where we feel safe. So whether that is thinking about something else, moving through it, thinking about the next thing that's coming, that's why the work of Kristen Neff and Chris Germer is so important, because it takes mindfulness and adds self-compassion to it. So their work is mindful self-compassion. So when we're mindful and we're comfortable or uncomfortable with what we're experiencing in that moment, and we could give ourselves some self-compassion, it helps us to deal with where our brain is going.
So we won't solve it all, but I know you teach to this and you're going to be teaching to this. And so tell us a little bit more about the training that you're putting together for folks that are interested in learning more.
So yes, we're offering a training beginning at the end of January, an 8-session series on mindful self-compassion specifically for educators. And we're going to offer this in the evenings from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Central Time, virtually, for 8 Tuesdays in a row, with an optional Saturday retreat virtually. And it's going to be a great session, a great series. I feel like we're going to learn about what self-compassion is, do some self-exploration about empathy and shame, put some practices into place, and we'll equip you with some tools so that hopefully, we intentionally scheduled it in January to begin, because a lot of times the spring for educators is really packed full of a lot of stress. So we're hoping to equip some educators with some tools to help them out.
That sounds awesome. With you at the helm, it's going to be powerful stuff. I'm not worried about that. And if I have enough time, I might sneak under the circus tent and actually come check it out myself. There are some cultural implications for mindfulness, in my opinion. You spoke of yoga. For some people, yoga may be a very important part of their cultural experience to gain that presence, to deal with their discomfort or whatever. For some folks, it may be, prayer. And for others, it can be any number of individualized activities. We personally have worked with somebody who had to go out in the garden before we could even start a program, and find grounding through the earth, through their natural experience with the earth, taking off shoes and saying out loud, which is what I appreciated from that experience with the individual. I have to do this in order to understand what you're getting ready to say to me. So I have to do this first, which I thought was powerful. I was so impressed. Number one, that the person was able to articulate that and make it clear what they were doing to us. Me, as a practice, I wouldn't have taken off my shoes to go walk in the grass. But that's what they needed in the moment. And so my point is, how do we demystify this mindful activity and allow folks to have their current practice and let that practice guide their way, opposed to any number of misconceptions that say, well, you really should do yoga if in fact you want to be mindful.
To answer your question of like, how do we, get other people to think about mindfulness in a way that feels right for them? I mean, people don't know what they don't know. And so I would say, along my personal journey, I've shared a few moments ago, this is a tool for me. This is a tool that's worked for me. It's a tool that I continually nurture, practice, try to make a part of my daily life. And I'm perfectly imperfect, still figuring this out. What works for me today may not work tomorrow. And I think it also goes back to, I think about emotional intelligence. I mean, emotional literacy, emotional intelligence, what I've learned through Dr. Sood's work is there's 4 parts to emotional intelligence or emotional literacy. Self-compassion, you take good care of yourself. Compassion for others, you take good care of others. Self-awareness, you know what you need. You're aware of your needs, your limitations, your strengths, your areas of growth, and awareness of others. So again, self-compassion plus compassion for others, self-awareness plus awareness of others. And if we can build our emotional intelligence to be aware of what our needs are and give ourselves the compassion that we need to do what we need to do and feel like we can do that, I think we will get to a place where we can find what mindfulness might mean for us individually. I mean, I know Dr. Brene Brown has done a lot of work, around vulnerability, shame, empathy, but she did some research, and she said when she was studying about different occupations and what they use whenever they need to ground themselves, those are not her words, but essentially like be mindful, be present in the moment. the people that she found were on two different opposite ends of the spectrum. On one side, yoga leaders, meditation instructors, practitioners, and on the other side, elite athletes, soldiers, firefighters. And the thing that those two groups of people had in common were breath work, which a lot of times people will tie breath work to being mindful. So I think that just kind of illustrates the importance of mindfulness and essentially breath work, which can be a part of mindfulness.
So I'm not poking fun, but I am going to take on one of my personal challenges. I always thought it a little unfair. My own body chemistry doesn't allow me to take a full breath, right? And so I was hearing over and over and over, I get into these sessions or someone would be facilitating and we'd start with this guided breath work. And I was like, if the next person who tries to get me to take a breath is going to get like the full brunt of my frustration. And at the same time, I do understand that even in our counseling practice, we encourage people to take in that air. What's the air doing to our body? Why is the breath work so important?
Well, from what I have learned is obviously we need air to breathe. But when we take a full breath, oftentimes we don't take full breaths. We're just, as we're speaking right now, our lungs are not even filling completely up with air. But there is a lot of research about just taking in a full breath and releasing it, being a grounding strategy. And also it helps our blood circulate, gives more blood to our brains, allows us to think more clearly, allows us to be more present. I don't have the exact research in front of me about why that works. I just know it works.
Yeah, no, I trust you. I know where you work. So if most of us just took some time to breathe a little more, we may be a little more functional.
If 5 deep breaths is all you need.
Just 5, huh?
And that may take a minute and a half, potentially, depending on how quickly you breathe.
How do you explain that? You do a phenomenal job, by the way, of I've co-facilitated with you. So I'm not talking, I'm not doing false adulation here. Talk to me about what your aim is. Is it to demystify mindfulness?
My aim is to just be the best version of myself and to hope that people see that and ask questions and to model what true emotional intelligence looks like and what it looks like to be kind to yourself and what it looks like to really be present in the moment. Kind of back to what you were saying, I think going down like a path of breath work, just for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
3 to 5 breaths, 5 would be great. Just deep cleansing breaths, and as you mentioned, some people that's difficult for them, whether there's an asthma issue or COPD or something like that. But the work I've really been trying to do over the past few years is, breathing in through your nose for a count of 5, holding it for a count of 5, and breathing it out through your mouth for a count of 5. Sometimes this is called square breathing, where you may draw a square in the sky as you're breathing. I remember working with students when I was on a campus, and on one side of their desk, putting a picture of a birthday candle, and on the other side of their desk, putting a piece of a birthday cake. And it was a tactile thing that they would put their left hand on the corner of their desk with the birthday cake to breathe in. And then they would put their right hand on the other corner of their desk to blow out the candle. Just as a kind of a way to model and a way to meet the needs of various learners. There are lots of great tools available through different apps and things like that. One of my actual most favorites to do on occasion is a website called Do Nothing for 2 Minutes. It's just donothingfor2minutes.com. And you go to this website, and for 2 minutes, you get to watch this beautiful scene. During that time, I usually recenter and take several deep breaths. If you touch your mouse or your keyboard, it starts over. So you have to, it encourages you, because 2 minutes is really all you need. Yeah, and through the mindful self-compassion work I've done, I've learned that a grounding technique for me personally is to put my hand over my heart, and to feel my breath as I'm breathing. So I notice that I do that subconsciously now, but just being aware of my body and grounding myself.
That's incredible stuff. I, I like that it takes this another misconception out of the play that you had to, number one, ascend the mountain, right? Or, find a forest, and all those things require time. They require access and they require time. And everything you just mentioned can be done wherever you are. You don't need a special place. You don't need, kind of a artificial environment in order to do any of the stuff that you just mentioned. I think I would probably fail the 2 minute do nothing. I'd be there for about an hour, still finding. I have to give myself permission. You do a lot of work in this area as well. I'm hoping that you'll talk to us a little bit about giving yourself a permission slip, because these times, especially for workers, especially for parents, people who've been through bad situations or going through them and are kind of stressing out about them in real time, you almost forget that 2 minutes isn't a really long time to do something like that. Everything else becomes so heavy, it seems like there is no time. And you'll hear people say this all the time. I don't have the time to do any of the stuff that you're talking about. Even professionals in simulated settings where there's no responsibility to be anyplace else will say things like, I don't have time for this. So how do you combat that, or help people at least embrace the idea that time is your friend in this?
Well, time is the greatest gift that we can ever give someone. There's never enough of it. At any one time, we have at least 130 undone tasks that we will never cross everything off of our list. I'm really fortunate to get to work with aspiring professional school counselors at a couple of universities, and that's a big shock to them when they realize, when they step out of the classroom, just how long their lists are. And I tell them that you will never cross everything off your list until you retire, and then you'll just have a new list. So lists and tasks and things are just kind of a part of life. And I think to just share my experience, like, had I not had the experience of not being balanced, I might not be good at this, or I might not be working towards improvement. Intention setting is really important. Oftentimes in trainings I get to facilitate, I have participants write a permission slip. And this is also some of Dr. Brene Brown's work. And essentially, you just ask yourself this question: what do I need to give myself permission to do, feel, or not do in order to show up for this experience? Could be used before going into the grocery store when you've got small children, because that's always an adventure. Could look like you getting in your car, getting ready to brave traffic. Could be you getting ready to clean your house, do laundry, go to an important meeting, sit through a training. And that, again, those questions are: what do I need to give myself permission to do, feel, or not do in order to show up for this experience? That tool has been life-changing for me, because I understand now, and I realize that I have the ability to be intentional about what I choose to do in most spaces. And now that I'm much older, I see and I understand how I might potentially fill in different spaces, and it allows me more opportunities to be more compassionate towards myself. As an example,
Mhm.
I'm not a big fan of going to the grocery store. Not fun for me. Not fun.
You or me?
Not fun, especially during the holidays when it's super packed. So I just know that when I finish going to the grocery store, I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to do something that brings me more joy when I finish. And so I set an intention. Okay, I'm going to walk down these 10 aisles. I kind of map it out in my brain. I know I'm probably my heart's going to start racing because I'm not a fan. And so I know that I'm going to have to take some breaths. I'm going to have to walk more quickly in some spaces. And so I just am intentional about when I do it, how I do it, and what I do when I'm finished. And that's just one kind of small example of being in the moment and being mindful, but then also offering myself some compassion during, after, and before.
I think it's important to talk about this stuff practically, because I still think it's a lofty construct to be mindful. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And what I'm hearing is it's going to always be different based on your circumstances, the way you see the world, and it can change. It doesn't need to be everything today. So let's talk a little bit more about the impact on schools then. I've been in spaces with you, and you've asked school faculty, teachers to give themselves permission slips, as well as to begin to set an intention to really kind of draw in that executive function. Why am I here? What am I doing here? What is my intention for this particular moment? Staying in those moments. What's a good roadmap for school folks who would probably argue that they're bombarded with things that would interfere with all of the good school skill stuff we've just talked about?
Man, I would say you are bombarded. You are teaching in 2023 or 2024. And our students and our families and the life of a professional educator looks different today than it ever has. I would say there's so much strength in noticing that, acknowledging it, and talking about it. What I do hear a lot from like professional educators, is sometimes we're not creating that space to really talk about what it's like how hard it is, how difficult things are. And this is not per se to bring all your staff together and for everyone to just have a session where they're complaining.
Mm-hmm.
It's more providing a safe space to share what you're really feeling. I've actually asked lots, probably hundreds of educators, have you had the opportunity to talk about how your life has changed as a professional educator due to the pandemic? I have had 5 people, 5 different schools ever raise their hands. And, I am going backwards a little bit just to talk about the pandemic, and just bear with me for a moment.
That's right.
Educating people, humans, ourselves, life looks different now than it did in January of 2020. And if we don't, as school leaders and professional educators, take the time to allow our school staff and ourselves to talk about what's different, how we feel about it, and to put some practices in place, the feelings are still being felt, whether we talk about them or not. And the story I'm telling myself is that a lot of school decision makers, leaders, have made a decision to not talk about that because there's a fear that what's shared by our professional educators will not be able to be put back into a box and sent on to do the hard work. Where in fact, all we really need is someone to be an empathetic ear. I mean, if you think about the very best therapist, the very best life coach, the very best helper, and the things that they hear that come in their office, hard things, loss, grief, guilt, hard things, right? That therapist per se has not experienced everything that's walked into their office. but they can connect on the emotion. So as our school leaders, you will not be able to fix everything that's brought to you when you allow this space, which I encourage you to do, but you can empathize with the feeling. The definition of empathy that Dr. Brown often uses, she takes Teresa Wiseman, who's a nursing scholar's definition, and her definition is honoring the perspective of what that person is sharing as their truth, whether it's your truth or not, or your experience, staying out of judgment with what that person is sharing, recognizing the emotion and communicating that emotion back to them. Brene Brown has taken that definition one step further and actually added Kristen Neff's self-compassion work, which means being mindful. When someone is sharing something with you that's truly difficult and hard, you're mindful, you're in the moment, you're not moving on, you're not thinking about the meeting that's coming up. So back to what I was saying, when we think about how hard things are in our schools, I feel like there's a root. One of the roots is we must provide a space where professional educators can talk about how they're feeling. And as a school leader or whoever's supporting this professional educator, we just need to be empathetic. We just need to sit with that person, listen, stay out of judgment, communicate that emotion, and be mindful in that moment. So when we think about what we can do in our schools and how hard it is right now to be a professional educator, empathy is a superpower. And empathy is closely related to mindfulness and self-compassion.
The mindful conversation has taken place. I'm looking forward to our part 2. But so far, I am having a ball. This is a great conversation. I think that it's important for our workforces, especially those who are handling really difficult situations in these school settings. But I also think that this is practical. This is just me at my house when we've had one too many asks and we're over our heads in responsibilities and things are a little stressful. So I'm really encouraged by what we're talking about. When we come back, we're going to pick up where we left off and talk a little bit about making self-compassion part of our network and part of our practice as well.
Thank you for tuning in to our production of Talking Beyond Trauma, which is made available by the South-Southwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, or MHTTC, through a cooperative agreement funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. The MHTTC's primary goal is to provide free training, share best practices, and offer ongoing support and consultation to professionals serving individuals with mental health challenges. We would like to extend our gratitude to our guest, Dr. Natalie Fikac, and our host, Mordecai Dixon, for their contribution to this discussion. Lastly, we would like to acknowledge the hard work of our dedicated team, without whom this project would not have been possible. And thank you to Make Every Media for their partnership in the development of Season 1. Season 2 was produced by the communications team here at the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health. It was recorded and edited by Mackenzie Bentley. Our theme music is by Scooter Holiday. The opinions expressed in this presentation are the views of our speakers and do not reflect the official position of the Department of Health and Human Services, or SAMHSA. If you'd like more information on this and other MHTTC products in the South-Southwest region, you can find a link in the episode description. This discussion was pre-recorded. We appreciate your participation and hope the discussion helped your journey. Be well.